So, here's a new series of videos where I rank every episode of one of the longest running animated shows of all time, The Simpsons. I've been a huge fan of The Simpsons since I was a kid, and I can not only appreciate the show for the impact it's had on animation, and essentially paving the way for adult cartoons like South Park and BoJack Horseman, but also for how great its golden age was. A variety of memorable layered characters, superb satirical commentaries on popular media, iconic catchphrases and quotes, genuinely heartfelt moments, and of course, hilarious layered comedy. And while the show has dipped in quality, and has yet to live up to its golden age, even the later seasons have had their fair share of good episodes. For this ranking, I'm going to be structuring it slightly differently than usual. With most of my movie rankings, I've done worst to best, which I find much easier in that situation, as the movies don't usually follow continuous stories or character arcs. With TV shows, however, I feel it will be easier to talk about them in order of release date, to feel more coherent. In this case, I will finish off with where I would rank them all. So here's my series ranking every episode of The Simpsons, starting with Simpsons roasting on an open fire manages to be both funny and poignant. Seeing Homer try to avoid spilling the beans about not getting his Christmas bonus, and trying to find a way to provide a good Christmas for the family, shows how devoted he is. And as well as delivering great drama, the episode manages to provide a lot of great laughs without muddying the tone, some of my favourite jokes being at the Christmas play at the beginning. The first episode, and honestly, a really good start. While Bart the Genius isn't quite as poignant as Simpsons roasting on an open fire, it's definitely a lot funnier. Some of my favourite comedic moments in the episode are the game of Scrabble at the beginning, and when the family go to an opera performance, where Homer and Bart make each other, and also Lisa, laugh. And speaking of Homer and Bart, I do like the relationship between them in the episode, and I think it has a relatively realistic edge to it. I also like Bart's character arc in the episode, wanting an opportunity to be seen as a genius, but then finding that he enjoyed his old school life a lot more, and confessing to cheating on the test. Really good episode. Homer's Odyssey is a weird one, because I enjoyed rewatching it, but when it finished, I couldn't really think what made it stand out to me, other than how it is interesting to see Homer facing repercussions for his incompetence. And also Black Smithers, I suppose. The episode has pacing issues. While the stuff with Bart at the beginning has good moments, it also takes up too much time considering the episode isn't about him. And maybe dedicating more time to Homer trying to get his job back, and the way he goes around it, would have been better. The episode does have good jokes, but unlike Simpsons roasting on an open fire, when combined with the serious moments, the tone feels slightly unbalanced here. It's a decent episode, but I don't have too much to say really. There's No Disgrace Like Home is strange to watch after watching so many subsequent episodes and seasons, mostly because of how different the characters are to how they would be in later seasons, especially having Homer be the voice of reason. But it is a good episode, and it is heartfelt that Homer is shown to love his family despite getting angry at them. And the scene at the end when they all shock each other during family therapy is quite funny. Not the most timeless episode of the show, by a landslide, but a good episode in the mindset of subsequent episodes and seasons not yet existing. Bart the General is an interesting episode. While the beginning is fine, the rest is actually quite funny and intriguing. I like the idea of a load of school kids going up against a school bully in the style of war movies, as it reminds me of how much I enjoy when films and TV shows take certain premises and make them work in the style of a movie genre. That's the most I can say really. The war parody concept is funny and intriguing, and it makes the episode as a whole a good one. Moaning Lisa is a good episode, and one that manages to give each of the four main characters a chance to shine. The main plotline involves Lisa being depressed, and while Marge initially tries to tell Lisa to smile regardless of how she feels inside, she ultimately sees the negative side to this, and tells her to be herself, which helps Lisa become happier, along with her learning to express herself through music with the help of musician Bleeding Gums Murphy. Despite being a comedy, much of classic Simpsons can also address more serious themes, and do so with dignity. We also get a fun side plot in which Homer tries to beat Bart in a boxing video game, and they do manage to connect it to the main storyline, though I do kind of feel bad for Homer at the end. An episode that successfully balances comedy and drama, as you'd expect more serious classic Simpsons episodes to do. The Call of the Simpsons is a pretty funny episode. It doesn't have the same emotional impact as some of my preferred episodes of this season, or even Moaning Lisa, but it is funny, which is what we go to The Simpsons for really. The plotline about Homer being mistaken for Bigfoot is so ridiculous, but also really funny. From Homer falling in the mud and babbling, to the newspaper headings surrounding Marge's input on the situation, to scientists trying to determine whether he is human or not. I think the funniest joke outside of this, and maybe the funniest in the episode, is when Homer gets the family stranded, and when he can't do shit, his echo accidentally reveals this.
I've murdered us all! I've murdered us all! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Don't!
It's mostly just a funny episode, which, as I stated, is what we watch The Simpsons for. The Telltale Head is an episode that provides an interesting character arc for Bart, and one that a lot of people will identify with, wanting to look cool, but not turning to criminal activity in order to achieve it. While Bart is known as a bad boy in school, he does also have a moral compass. This episode introduced Dolph, Jimbo and Kearney, and I like that they're not just one-dimensional bullies in the episode, initially showing respect for Bart, only to make fun of him when he expresses doubt about the morality of decapitating the statue of Jebediah Springfield. The episode also features some good jokes, particularly Homer listening to the football game in church, which plays in sync with what Reverend Lovejoy is saying, and the Godfather reference with the head of the Jebediah Springfield statue. Overall, a funny and somewhat relatable episode. Life on the Fast Lane takes a darker edge than a lot of Season 1 episodes, but I think it does it better than Homer's Odyssey, primarily in how the episode does find a balance between dark subject matter and good humour. Marge finds herself becoming interested in a seductive bowling instructor, which puts a strain on her marriage with Homer, although her motivations line up given how ignorant Homer was on her birthday. Both Marge and Homer get interesting character arcs, with Homer realising he's been a bad husband and trying to change for the better, and Marge realising that, deep down, her heart lies with Homer. And the final scene where Marge chooses Homer is so good. So it's a really good episode, except for Helen Lovejoy's design. My, what weird eyes you have. Homer's Night Out isn't as funny as other episodes, but I still think it's a good episode. I've heard people say the episode is bad because they perceive the concept of a photo of Homer dancing next to another woman finding its way across town, and Marge accusing Homer of objectifying her, ridiculous. But my interpretation is that this is how it leads to its execution of its anti-sexism message. The photo finds its way across town because all the men are attracted to Princess Kashmir, with the photo even being confiscated from some of the men and boys. And I think the reason Marge perceived Homer dancing next to her as objectification was because he put the dollar bill in her G-string. And it does come to the ending in which Homer tries to teach Bart about not objectifying women, and eventually conveys it on stage, consequently reconciling with Marge. While I do consider it a good episode, I do put it lower on the list, just because I don't find it as funny as other episodes. The Creps of Wrath has good jokes, including when Skinner's mother comes to Springfield Elementary and the boys act innocent. I do think it's a bit too mean-spirited to Bart in the way his adoptive parents treat him, even if this was likely intentional. But the outcome at the end is warranted. I also like to assume that Homer's bad back was healed when Bart agreed to go to France. Only reason I can think of him suddenly jumping off the couch like a motherfucker when hearing it. The show's first dive into a whodidit mystery, in which Krusty is arrested, and Bart enlists the help of Lisa to prove his innocence. I like the build-up to the revelation that it was Sideshow Bob. Kelsey Grammer makes his first appearance as Bob, and showcases a great voice performance, both in the speaking and also singing department. And Bob's motivations as to why he did it make a lot of sense, and you feel sorry for him to some extent. I also like when he says to treat kids as equals and not underestimate their intelligence. This is what I'd like to say to all those who say, "But it's for kids," when I'm explaining the problem with bad kids films or shows. Krusty Gets Busted is a really good episode overall, and the first major appearance of one of the best supporting characters on the show. Some Enchanted Evening is a good episode. It's hard not to mention the episode's famous smooth animation, but it's also not the only thing the episode has going for it. I like Homer's character development in the episode, showing that, despite him being a selfish buffoon at times, he does love Marge, and gives her a night at a restaurant and motel. It also manages to have a hilarious ending in which Homer unknowingly helps Mrs. Botts escape the police and lies about fighting her to the media. But it does also have a heartwarming scene of Marge consoling Homer over his ability to raise 3 kids who can hogtie a criminal. Good episode. So overall, a good start to the series. Will Season 2 follow suit? Well, not one of the funniest episodes of The Simpsons, but one that nonetheless manages to blend humour and emotion brilliantly. Bart discovers that he is failing class, and is given one more chance to improve his grades, otherwise he'll have to repeat the 4th grade. Which, funnily enough, all the students have done, given that over 30 years later, they're still in the 4th grade. Bart ultimately decides to step up his game, but he discovers that he has difficulty focusing, even when he tries hard to revise, and even prays to God for things to work out. With the blizzard taking place, Lisa advises Bart to stay home and revise while everyone else has fun, ultimately being confined to the darkness of a basement while everyone else is outside in the brightness of the town. However, despite his best efforts, he fails by 1 mark, and what we get is one of the saddest and most relatable moments in the show, Bart practically breaking down as, despite his best efforts, he failed, saying that you can do your best and still not necessarily succeed, which is ultimately a hard but important thing to understand. Though of course, it does have a happier outcome, and Bart manages to succeed, saying,
"But part of this D- belongs to God."
A fantastic episode that blends humour and heart brilliantly, and is very likely to end up near the top of the final list. Simpson and Delilah is a good episode. While it's not as funny or poignant as other episodes, it has good moments. I think Carl is an interesting character, and Harvey Fierstein brings a lot to him, both vocally and also behind the scenes in terms of his character design. I like how on Homer and Marge's wedding anniversary, Carl hires a singer to perform You Are So Beautiful to Marge, and then when Marge sings the song to console Homer at the end of the episode. It's probably my favourite moment in the episode. I also like how the episode shows some humanity in Mr. Burns when he sympathises with Homer's male pattern baldness and gives him his old job back. It's just a good episode. See it for what it is. Treehouse of Horror, the first Halloween episode of The Simpsons. While I can commend this episode for paving the way for genuinely hilarious Halloween episodes, I don't think this one is particularly strong as a whole, but still good. Hungry Are the Damned is my favourite of the 3 segments, as it has a lot of funny jokes to it, especially the How to Cook for Humans scene and the references to HBO and Pong, as well as an interesting shot of Homer and Marge's heads over the served plates to indicate the aliens will cook and serve them like this. Bad Dream House and The Raven are funny segments. That's about it. And James Earl Jones is entertaining in his vocal roles across all 3 segments. A good episode, but ultimately one that is more groundbreaking than it is outstanding. 2 Cars in Every Garage and 3 Eyes on Every Fish is a funny episode. I like its themes of environmentalism and its satirical commentary on politics, as well as the way Marge follows Mr. Burns at the end. Good episode overall. Down Sonoma is a good episode with some funny moments, particularly Marge trying to get Bart's ball signed, and Mr. Burns not knowing the names of the Simpsons family.
Ah, well, if it isn't the Simps!
Don't have much more to say, but I liked it. Dead Putting Society is a funny episode, particularly in watching Homer act like an overly competitive buffoon throughout the episode. His attempt to humiliate Ned comes to a comedic karma ending, in which he claims they both lost the bet and now have to mow each other's lawns in their wives' dresses, only for Ned to enjoy it and Homer to be the humiliated one. There's also some funny moments in Lisa training Bart for the golf tournament. It's not an amazing episode, but it is a funny one all the same. There's a lot of funny jokes in this episode, and even some subtle commentary, such as when Mr. Burns has Smithers dispose of a huge quantity of food, as well as Kent Brockman doing a human interest story at the soup kitchen, primarily hoping to win an Emmy. I do think Bart is a bit too mean-spirited in the episode, however, implemented when he destroys Lisa's centerpiece, and, for a lot of the episode, doesn't regret it. But he does have an arc in the episode, giving money to the homeless guys he met, and seeing how badly he upset Lisa and apologising. A good episode overall. Bart the Daredevil is quite a funny and also emotionally gripping episode that shows how, despite getting easily annoyed by him, Homer, and also Lisa, do nonetheless care about Bart's safety, with Homer being willing to kill himself to show Bart the danger of jumping Springfield Gorge when nothing else works. Though this does result in Bart learning his lesson, Homer ends up inadvertently riding over the gorge anyway, and in comedically dark fashion, ends up falling down the gorge twice. And honestly, this never fails to crack me up. Many years before South Park took on the topic of censorship as a recurring theme, both on the small and big screen, The Simpsons managed to take it on in an interesting commentary with Itchy and Scratchy and Marge. As well as having a hilarious Psycho reference, the episode leans into the question if cartoons influence children to become violent, and also about the hypocrisy of trying to censor one form of art, but not another. Shown in Marge getting Itchy and Scratchy toned down, but seeing David as a work of art. I like how even the toned down Itchy and Scratchy cartoons manage to be hilarious, and how this prompts the bored children to go outside, creating the illusion of a cheerful utopia. Ultimately, I conceive the episode's message to be about not censoring art because one person dislikes it, as this can start a chain of other people having art censored because they don't like it. And also something that, as mentioned before, South Park would go on to address many times. A very funny and thought-provoking episode. This was the first episode to guest star the late great Phil Hartman. Revisiting these episodes in order of air date reminds me of the comedic delivery Hartman brought to both Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure. And overall, this is a good episode with some funny moments, particularly in how Homer and Bart try to fabricate the truth for financial gain beyond Bart's medical bills, while Mr. Burns tries to fabricate the truth and ends up infuriating everyone, including Smithers.
You believed his cock and bull story?
And it's good to see Marge bring her moral compass to court, and the reconciliation between her and Homer at the end is a very emotional one. Good episode. This is an interesting episode that maintains both humour and poignancy in Homer trying to make the most of the potential final hours of his life, along with the hilarious ending in which he vows to make the most of his life, but simply does what he was doing before. A good episode. When I think of Simpsons episodes that show why Homer and Marge's relationship feels genuine, one of the first to come to mind is The Way We Was. The episode shows that, despite Homer's flaws, he really loves and respects Marge. I especially love the detail of Marge teaching Homer French, and then after the prom, he fixes her dress with the corsage he bought her, saying, "Poor vous," which ended up becoming a common saying in their relationship going forward, as well as Close to You essentially becoming their song. Like Artie, Homer loves Marge. Unlike Artie, Homer respects Marge, which is something I feel later writers would misunderstand. And the episode has a lot of really good jokes. The reference to Siskel and Ebert is hilarious, and my favourite jokes are when Homer says,
English? Who needs that? I'm never going to England.
As well as his quote-unquote rebuttal. A very funny and also emotionally gripping episode, and one you ought to love if you were to understand how legitimate Homer and Marge's love for each other is. This is a really good episode. I like the arc Homer has in stealing cable, only for Lisa to convince him not to watch the fight at the end, and then cut off the cable connection. A really good episode. Principal Charming manages to have both humour and heart. It has funny references to Vertigo and Gone with the Wind, but it also gives character development to both Principal Skinner and Patty. Despite Patty seeming unlikable, especially in ruining Selma's chance at marrying a co-worker, it is shown that she cares for her sister, passing up marrying Skinner due to the bond she has with Selma. Skinner accepts the situation, and humorously reasserts his authority over Bart. Good episode. This is a decent episode. My favourite joke is probably when Homer cries about not being able to find the Shelbyville orphanage. The design of the Homer is pretty creatively bizarre as well. With this said, the ending rubs me the wrong way. While Homer's car was a disaster, Herb did ask Homer to design the car, and never oversaw any of the design blueprints, only to then blame him when he goes bankrupt. And this does bring the episode down for me, though it's far from a bad episode. I do think the ending to this episode is poignant, though I do think the point about Santa's little helper being reckless is dragged out for too long. Good episode overall though. Old Money is a very emotionally gripping episode. The relationship between Grandpa and Bee is very touching, and her death is very sad. While the episode does have a lot of funny jokes, as you'd expect from The Simpsons, it has quite a serious angle, and a poignant ending in which Homer stops Grandpa from gambling our money away, and Grandpa instead uses the money to repair the retirement home, renaming the dining room in her honour. Really good episode. This is a really good episode. I like the humour that comes in Homer getting stuck in the water slide and trying to lose weight as a result of it, and how it leads to him discovering Marge's old paintings of Ringo Starr, which prompts Lisa to suggest Marge go to a painting class where her artwork proves successful. When Mr. Burns asks Marge to paint a picture of him for an upcoming museum wing, she becomes frustrated by his personality and the way he speaks to her family. Despite becoming demotivated and unsure of how to make him beautiful, she finds a decades-late letter from Ringo Starr, praising her artwork, and prompting her to continue, leading to quite an interesting message about what the portrait shows. I also really like Ringo Starr's two scenes, and how well incorporated they are into the story, as well as his guest appearance. Though, having grown up with the classic era of Thomas the Tank Engine, of which he narrated the first two seasons, it's hard not to imagine him finishing one of his lines with, "said Thomas."
"Yeah," said Thomas.
Lisa's Substitute is a very funny and poignant episode. The plotline about Mr. Bergstrom being Lisa's substitute teacher manages to have a lot of poignancy to it, while the plotline about Bart wanting to be class president has a lot of funny jokes. And I like how the two plotlines come together at the end, when Homer consoles both Lisa and Bart over the negative outcomes. Mr. Bergstrom is a great one-off character, shown to care about his students, particularly Lisa, and his note to her before he leaves is especially poignant. Dustin Hoffman brings a lot to his vocal performance, and it even comes with a funny Graduate reference. Sex! Now that I've got your attention, watch Lisa Substitute. It's great. The War of the Simpsons juggles a plotline of Marge trying to fix her and Homer's marriage, and one of Bart and Lisa taking advantage of Grandpa taking care of them. And both are very well done. The setup in which Homer gets drunk at a house party is genuinely funny, particularly when Homer tells off a guest he doesn't know, and the end of the party, where Dr. Hibbert tells Marge what to do if she wants Homer to survive the night. And Homer's response to Marge sharing her humiliation. When Marge signs her and Homer up for marriage counselling, Homer tries to seize the opportunity to go fishing, but eventually lets a huge catfish go to show his love for her. While Homer and Marge's story has an emotionally gripping end, Bart, Lisa and Grandpa's has a funny twist, in which after Bart and Lisa trick him into letting them have a house party, he tricks them into cleaning the house by pretending to cry. To some extent, all the characters win in their own way in the end. This is a good episode. It's not quite as funny as other episodes, but it has some funny jokes, and it does have an intriguing message about learning to share. Blood Feud has a lot of really funny moments, including when the family debate the lesson they learned by the end. But my favourite moment is when Homer pretends to be Mr. Burns to get back the letter Bart sent, and forgetting his first name. It may well be the most comedically layered scene in The Simpsons at this point. There's the giant painting atop the post office, Homer using a fake voice, like that's going to make any difference. The fake voice not even sounding like Mr. Burns. He doesn't know his boss's name. He continues to use the fake voice in spite of it. The delivery of,
I don't know.
He blames Bart. 7 jokes in just 15 seconds. I also like how even though Smithers stands by Mr. Burns a lot of the time, he draws the line at allowing him to have Homer beaten in response to his angry letter, reminding him that the Simpsons saved his life, prompting Burns to send them an Olmec head. Really good end to the season. An improvement over Season 1, and with many considering the golden age of The Simpsons to be Seasons 3 to 8, I think optimism is the best state of mind for what's to come. So, here we have the only Simpsons episode to be banned from streaming services and DVD release as of 2019. And honestly, whether you believe Michael Jackson to be guilty or not, I don't think the episode should be swept under the rug, especially when A Bug's Life is on Disney+, and we all know who voiced the villain in that movie. But looking at the quality of the episode, yeah, it's a great one. It has hilarious moments throughout, but also a certain amount of poignancy. And it brings its 2 plotlines about Homer, quote-unquote, meeting Michael Jackson, and Bart forgetting Lisa's birthday together, in which, quote-unquote, Michael helps Bart write a song for Lisa, which genuinely slaps. This is a funny episode. Lisa's determination to tell the truth is particularly admirable, and the episode has a lot of really funny moments, the best ones being the taxi mix-up, Homer and Bart enjoying the perks of the expenses paid, and Bart riding in the cockpit. Another really good episode. An episode that shows that even though Homer acts like he resents Ned, he does secretly ultimately care about him, going from wishing for his store to be closed, to actively seeking people to go to it. A really funny and heartwarming episode overall. While I do think it takes slightly too long to get into the main plot, I do like this episode overall. Joe Mantegna makes his first appearance as Fat Tony, and certainly brings a sense of comedic threat. A detail that stood out to me on my most recent rewatch was how Principal Skinner advises Bart to make a game out of licking envelopes, which foreshadows the way he stayed sane while trapped under newspapers. A very nice connection. We get an amusing A-plot in which Homer saves the plant by luck, only to wonder if he really is a hero, which comes to a funny ending. We also get a good B-plot about Bart and Milhouse, which comes to a heartwarming end where Marge defends Bart, prompting Milhouse's mum Luann to let them play together again. 2 good plotlines in an overall good episode. It's a good episode that humanises Krusty and establishes his backstory, including his complicated relationship with his father, which does come to an emotionally gripping conclusion in the end. The episode also manages to have a lot of funny moments, particularly Krusty trying to be serious, but the spotlight not doing any favours. Both a funny and heartwarming episode. It's the second Treehouse of Horror, and this one is an improvement on the first. I like the way the segments all tie together, and they all have really good jokes in them. Lisa's Nightmare features some really funny moments, the standouts being Maggie making a wish that seems like it's for a limo, only for it to simply be a delivery for a new dummy, and the ending in which Homer wishes for a turkey sandwich, which turns out to be a little dry, and gives the paw to Ned, who gets rid of the aliens and becomes celebrated. I also like the idea that everyone becomes tired of seeing The Simpsons everywhere, which seems like a subtle allegory for how big The Simpsons was at the time. Bart's nightmare is also very funny, with the highlights being Edna changing the answers in the test to accommodate Bart's, and the reconciliation between Homer and Bart at the end being the thing that woke Bart up from his quote-unquote nightmare. Homer's nightmare, while not as funny, is an entertaining story, with the twist about Burns' head really being stitched to Homer's neck being very funny. It seems as though the Treehouse of Horror episodes are upping themselves at this point. We'll see if this continues in the Season 4 ranking. A funny and poignant episode that shows Homer try to be a good father to Lisa, with her realising just how far he's willing to go for her to keep a pony. It also manages to work in a really funny Godfather reference. It's not one of my favourite episodes, but still, there goes a good episode from one of the best seasons The Simpsons ever had. A funny episode that gives Homer a good character arc in realising he needs to support Bart, even if Bart didn't choose his go-kart to race in. It also has a good Ben-Hur reference in it. Flaming Moe's has a lot of great elements to it. The setup surrounding the titular drink, and how Homer invented it, is both creative and funny. And the episode features a lot of great moments from here, including Edna drunkenly stealing the drumsticks, Homer's sarcastic, happy monologue, Homer being too upset to eat and going to Moe's, Bart's botched, huge ass prank call, and Homer's manic monologue about the secret ingredient. The Flaming Moe's song is quite nice to listen to, and I like Moe's arc in the episode. While he is quite selfish, he does eventually come to acknowledge the drink as Homer's invention in the end, serving him one free of charge. Great episode. Other than the fantastic Land of Chocolate fantasy, the episode is never hilarious, though it does have good jokes, such as the one about Lenny's smile. And I do like Mr. Burns' arc of buying back the plant upon realising his former employees no longer fear him. It's far from the best of the show, but it is a good episode overall. A very funny and heartwarming episode. It not only manages to have a lot of funny moments, including Homer's reaction to Smithers' questions at the job interview, and when he accidentally spoils the ending of The Empire Strikes Back, but it also shows how dedicated Homer is to providing for Marge and Bart, with the poor view from The Way We Was coming back. A great episode overall. Radio Bart is a great episode that has hilarious moments throughout, including, but certainly not limited to, Bart's free birthday sundae, the Neapolitan ice cream scene, and several of Bart's microphone pranks. I also think the episode's commentary on people trying to profit off tragic stories is well handled, with the town trying to profit off what is seemingly an awful event. And yeah, it's just a great episode overall. While I do wish the B-plot with Marge and Bart had more to it, I do like the A-plot, and Homer's arc of putting Lisa's love for him before money. The episode is also home to good jokes, particularly people skipping church to watch the game, with one of the few attendees leaving when being reminded of it. This is a good episode. While it's not particularly funny, it is satisfying to see Marge take a break from the stress of looking after her family. Bart the Lover is an episode that shows just how well The Simpsons can balance comedy and poignancy. The plotline about Bart tricking Edna into thinking a man loves her starts off as a cruel prank, but it then turns into a beautiful closure, in which Bart works with his family to write a final letter that makes her continue to feel loved. If I were to mention how good the recurring voice actors were all the time, I'd probably repeat myself a lot. But I will point out two specific vocal performances in this episode that stand out. One is the late great Marcia Wallace's Edna, who shows the depression and loneliness that plagues the character, and earned a much deserved Emmy for her performance. The other is Dan Castellaneta, who was always fantastic as Homer, and in this episode really shows the comedic anger he endures trying to build a dog kennel. And on that note, the side plot in which Homer tries to cut back on swearing is frequently hilarious, though Ned Flanders without a moustache looks slightly uncanny. Ugh. A fantastic episode, and one of the best of Season 3. The first episode to beat The Cosby Show in the ratings, Homer at the Bat is a classic episode, with constant hilarious moments and memorable celebrity cameos. Unlike a lot of modern episodes, where the celebrity cameos are shoved down our throats, these cameos were actually worked into the story, with Mr. Burns hiring real-life softball players to play for his team. What truly makes the episode great in my opinion, is Homer's ambition to play with his magic bat, as well as how he wins the game at the end, which I won't spoil. And also how the softball players end up dropping out, with incidents including Ken Griffey Jr. developing gigantism, and Joe Canseco saving a woman's possessions from a burning building, individually. A classic episode with a great amount of humour. I like how this episode puts Bart and Lisa in opposite situations, Bart bringing orders to the school, and Lisa rebelling. The twist about the teachers requiring books for answers, and then stressing when the books are stolen, is very funny. And it has a heartwarming ending, in which Bart sacrifices his credibility to prevent Lisa getting expelled, and she consoles him by resuming playing her saxophone. Really good episode. This episode is home to a lot of funny moments, including the fantasy of King Homer, and Homer not knowing Lisa's birthday. But the standouts are Kent Brockman winning the lottery, and the Clockwork Orange reference, and the flip side to it. Even if the family's treatment of Santa's little helper is a bit too mean-spirited, considering the twisted stomach wasn't his fault, the episode does end on a heartwarming reconciliation between him and Bart. While Homer is unnecessarily hostile at the beginning, the rest of the episode is pretty great, with one of my favourite jokes being Homer having to drive past miles of awful smells. And it's the show's introduction to Lurleen Lumpkin, who is a sympathetic character seeking to launch a singing career, but also hoping to become Homer's lover, mostly due to him being one of, if not the first, men to show respect for her. Homer's conflict about remaining Lurleen's manager, even when tension rises and it puts his marriage on thin ice, is a well-executed one. And his decision to quit and return to Marge is a heartwarming one, and one that Lurleen, through a new song, reluctantly accepts. And on that topic, Lurleen's songs are all fantastic, two of which were written by her voice actress Beverly D'Angelo, whose voice performance and singing are superb. Kelsey Grammer returns as Sideshow Bob, and does a great job conveying his comedic insanity. And overall, it is a frequently hilarious episode, with some of my favourite moments being Sideshow Bob and Krusty's argument at the Emmys, the former's sarcasm about MacGyver being good, Bart trying to explain the problem to Homer before succeeding in explaining it to Marge, and the way Chief Wiggum inadvertently catches Bob at the end. A really funny episode, and a great second chapter in Sideshow Bob's character arc. This is a good episode. It has several funny moments, such as Homer telling Bart to give up if something's too hard, as well as Lisa mentioning the school bus not having seatbelts, and also accidentally killing Spinal Tap. Don't have much more to say, but I like it. Bart's Friend Falls in Love has one of the best openings in the entire series. A parody of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Bart steals Homer's change and has to escape as Homer chases him down, culminating in Bart escaping on the bus and Homer yelling gibberish with the rake. Possibly the best cultural reference in the series. And yet, the rest of the episode doesn't feel connected to it, or even live up to it. It's a good episode, and there are other funny jokes in it, such as Milhouse's quote about Romeo and Juliet, but nothing lives up to the brilliance of the opening, and that is a shame. An improvement on Oh Brother Where Art Thou. While Homer does still get a lot of unnecessary flack from Herb, the episode does come to a more satisfying end, where Herb, finally, oversees the invention himself, regains his fortune, and reconciles with his brother. It also has a lot of funny moments, with Homer's award show being a funny parody of award shows, along with Homer in the vibrating chair providing a great 2001 A Space Odyssey reference, and some very funny translations on the baby translator. A really good episode overall. An even better season than the last two. I guess we'll see if Season 4 continues to improve an already great series. Starts the season on a high note, with lots of memorable funny scenes, including Bart and Lisa trying to get the report cards changed, Milhouse's question for Mr. Black, Krusty dismissing the dangerous objects with his name on them, Barney blowing his Krusty disguise, and how Lisa senses the real Krusty, and overall makes for a really good start to the season. Both plotlines in this episode manage to be hilarious and go hand in hand. The plotline about Maggie trying to get her and the other baby's dummies back at the daycare, a la The Great Escape, is hilarious, but the main plot point about Marge is even better. I think one of my favourite parts of the episode is that while Homer does seem indifferent to Marge acting in the play, he not only pays attention to it when seeing it, but also manages to grasp how dark and depressing the story is, even with the upbeat songs of the musical adaptation, which are fantastic songs by the way. A frequently funny episode, with the standout moments being Homer making moon waffles, his reaction to finding a penny under the couch, and his flashback of playing in the beer rain, and the entire scene in which Ned tries to save him from the fire. It also has a nice ending message about how different religions can come together to help each other. Great episode. Both hilarious and emotionally gripping, with Homer's devotion to make Lisa feel better being admirable, in addition to having various hilarious scenes, including the Disney lawsuit, Barney crushing the Duff Blimp, and the way Lisa is stripped of her Little Miss Springfield crown at the end.
In the area under "Do not write in this space," he wrote,
Great episode. Yep, this Treehouse of Horror improves on the last two, with all the segments being hilarious. Clown Without Pity features many iconic moments, such as Homer buying the Krusty doll, Grandpa's correct but dramatic statement about the doll being evil, Patty's response to seeing Homer naked, and most especially, the twist ending. King Homer manages to be a frequently funny parody of King Kong, even for someone who hasn't seen the film, with some of the best jokes including Smithers' comment about Marge joining the crew, Burns getting high on gas, and the scene with Shirley Temple. Dial Z for Zombies features many great moments, with the best including Groundskeeper Willie only briefly reacting with horror to the zombies, Homer being rejected by the zombies due to them seeking brains, and him taking the opportunity to shoot Ned, not realising he was a zombie. 3 great segments combined into a great episode. This is a great episode that showcases Bart and Homer's relationship, and a heartwarming message to it. It also manages to have a lot of hilarious moments, particularly the Star Trek parody, Bart messing around with Grandpa's teeth, Homer pushing in front for the ice cream truck, and his conversation with Bart afterwards, the Itchy and Scratchy World War II cartoon, Maggie driving Homer's car, and Wiggum's casual reaction to it, the man falling down the bridge as it opens, and the opening scene of the Itchy and Scratchy movie, and how much Itchy goes through just to run over Scratchy. I watched this episode several times as a kid, and I used to think it was interesting how the film featured skits of Itchy killing Scratchy that couldn't be shown on TV, which I thought was symbolic of how Bart, and the audience, never get to see any of the movie other than the opening scene. I don't know if this was intentional on the writer's part, but it interested me nonetheless. While Mr. Burns falling in love with Marge in this episode is strange, given that they've met several times before, the episode is nonetheless home to good jokes, with Smithers' fantasy about Mr. Burns being the standout joke. I also like Homer standing up for Marge at the end. Good episode. The 2 plotlines of this episode, Bart falling in love with Laura, and Homer eating at the seafood restaurant, managed to go hand in hand, with both having funny moments throughout. Particularly Bart admitting he fell on his bottom, Homer remembering how he learned about sex, the reference to the seemingly never-ending story, the bags of shrimp actually being letters in another trial, and Bart's prank calls to Moe, and Moe's reaction to Bart giving his address. I just hope Moe eventually finds Amanda hug and kiss, provided his standards aren't too high. While not one of the funniest episodes, the episode is nonetheless home to good moments, particularly Homer pretending Moe's is a pornography store, Homer saying he'd never do another stupid thing, the terrible Mr. Plow advert, and Adam West's cameo. I also like how it further explores the friendship between Homer and Barney, and gives both of them good character arcs. Not one of the best episodes of the season, but a good one nonetheless. This episode is home to funny moments, particularly Bart flushing Homer's wallet down the toilet, though it's not frequently hilarious like other episodes. The ending is very poignant, however, and I like how the episode explores the first words of all the Simpsons children. A darkly hilarious episode, which is home to many great moments, particularly the bad cop segment, Homer's initial indifference to his heart, Mr. Burns inadvertently killing him, and one of Dr. Nick's failed patients. Well, at least in the case of Homer's heart surgery, Dr. Nick pulled a Homer. Though not widely praised among the cast and crew of the show, Marge vs. the Monroe managed to be a really funny, intelligent episode. While I did previously say that I've never seen The Simpsons as that realistic in its style of comedy, there is definitely some sense of realism to it. Yet, I don't think this episode quite crosses the line in terms of silliness. Except maybe Leonard Nimoy's exit at the end. The episode features a number of hilarious moments, including the Flintstones-themed opening, the popcorn rising when a truck falls through a hole, Homer believing Batman will help him, etc. The episode also has that amount of comedic suspense in the monorail not being able to stop, and guest star Leonard Nimoy's overly dramatic response to the events happening, including the solar eclipse. Plus, who can forget the monorail song?
Mono, don't!
This episode has a variety of hilarious moments, especially concerning Homer eating the spoiled sandwich, and Bart and Lisa's antics at Duff Gardens, with Lisa's hallucination, like Dumbo, having creative visuals, but also, unlike Dumbo, actually being relevant to the plot, funny, and not overlong. It also manages to give Selma a compelling arc of wanting a child to avoid dying alone, but eventually seeing the difficulty of it, and instead raising Jub Jub. With this said, the Duff Beer For Me song was stuck in my head after I watched the episode, and I think it's gonna get stuck back in my head as I'm talking about it. Oh shit. Duff beer for me, Duff beer for you. I'll have a duff. You have one too. Please forgive my terrible singing. The most hilarious part of this episode is the fight between Homer and Tom at the end, especially Homer's hatred of antiques, and when he falls on the fire hydrant at the end. But, as to not undermine how great the episode is, it manages to show the complicated relationship between Homer and Bart, which manages to have an emotionally gripping outcome, even if somewhat predictable. I Love Lisa manages to be both a very funny and poignant episode. It's great to see an episode about Ralph, and how he struggles to comprehend Lisa not liking him, and when his heart is broken, he vents this frustration into a compelling portrayal of George Washington. It shows a different side to Ralph, and how, despite being the dumbest character on the show, there is talent within him. And his platonic reconciliation with Lisa at the end is very heartwarming. It also, as you'd expect from classic Simpsons, manages to have a lot of hilarious moments, including Homer forgetting Valentine's Day and his scene with Apu, Skinner's Vietnam flashback, Krusty's anniversary special, Homer getting Ralph to clean the roof, Wiggum revealing how he got tickets, and the presidential play. A great episode from a great season. This episode does have a lot of really good moments, including Homer trying to hide going to the Duff Brewery, and trying to slam the door on Barney until he agrees to let him drive, Lisa's hamster project, and Homer trying to avoid thinking about beer. And the ending of Homer continuing to avoid drinking to go on a bicycle ride with Marge is very heartwarming. With that said, the side plot about Bart destroying Lisa's tomato feels too mean-spirited, and it rubs me the wrong way to see Bart win in the end. Yeah, Lisa turned Bart into an experiment, but he kind of deserved it. In spite of this, Duffless is a really good episode overall. I've always loved this episode. While I previously named it my third favourite Simpsons episode, upon rewatch, this may end up being my favourite of the entire series. There's not a single joke in this episode I didn't think was fantastic. From the McBain opening to the ending with the laughing gas, there's never a dull moment, and it's hard to single out particular jokes or moments as a result. As can be said for many classic Simpsons references, the references to The Godfather Part 2, Yellow Submarine, and Batman are all hilarious, and they work in the context of the story if you're not familiar with the reference. And the episode has an ending which manages to be both funny and touching. Burns causing a power outage, but the workers not losing hope. And with Burns' hilarious Grinch-like observation, it makes it an even funnier situation. A frequently hilarious, and, when it wants to be, touching episode, and one of, if not the best in the series. The first half of the episode has many funny moments, primarily in Homer and Bart trying to prank each other on April Fool's Day. The second half does overuse clips slightly, but their incorporation is decent overall. Both plotlines in this episode have a lot of really funny moments. The standouts for each being Homer's revelation to Marge that he never graduated, and Bart and Lisa's rock paper scissors game. I also think the minute-long segment with Ned Flanders at the end is funny, even if it is a shame they never made more, ironically for the opposite reason the segment was created. I can definitely name some episodes that could have used them. Another Simpsons clip show. Another really good episode. I like how Lisa's hatred of Whacking Day and Bart's interest in learning end up going hand in hand to save the snakes. I especially love how the setup of Skinner trying to lock Bart and the bullies in the basement, and forgetting about the bullies, leads to him really trying to get them the mountain bikes, only for him and Willie to drive past the school. Honestly, my favourite part of the episode. While the stuff with Marge in prison feels slightly rushed, the episode is nonetheless home to a lot of really funny moments. The standouts being the stuff with the juice loosener, as well as Lionel Hutz trying to remove his tie to make Apu think he could really forget something, and be wrong about Marge. Another really good episode overall. Krusty Gets Cancelled is both very funny and emotionally gripping. Krusty trying to stay on the air has a lot of great moments, but the highlight is when he airs Worker and Parasite, which he doesn't even watch before airing. And Dan Castellaneta's absolutely perfect delivery of,
"What the hell was that?"
absolutely phenomenal. But Krusty's comeback special also manages to be both quite emotionally gripping and funny. And while Julie Kavner and Harry Shearer objected to the celebrity guest appearances, with Kavner not even appearing in the episode, I think they worked quite well here. Much better than they do in a lot of modern Simpsons episodes. The Simpsons have struck gold again, and even more so than the previous seasons. At this point, if Season 5 is even slightly weaker, don't want to say worse because that implies it'll be bad, it could be a sign of decline. But hopefully, and most likely, that won't be the case. great start to the season. The episode is home to many great moments, including Homer ignoring valuable items for just 5 cents, the way he gets rid of Wiggum, the auditions for Wiggum's replacement, Marge trying to compensate for Homer's absence, and George Harrison's cameo. The song Baby on Board is really good, and the final rooftop performance is fantastic. And speaking of Beatles references, they work really well, even if you're, somehow, not familiar with the band. Can't wait to see what's next. Years ago, I named Cape Fear my favourite Simpsons episode, and upon revisiting the episodes for this series, while I wouldn't necessarily consider it the best, it's still pretty great. The episode is home to many hilarious moments, while balancing it out with a sense of comedic tension in Sideshow Bob trying to kill Bart. Of course, there's the iconic fun fact, they paid Kelsey Grammer to do the noise once, then multiplied it up on the soundtrack. Cheap bastards. But there's also Bob's Die Bart Die tattoo, Homer's failure to catch on to
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
I think he's talking to you.
the family driving through the cactus patch, Bob getting trampled by the marching band and elephants, Homer's
You chainsaw Huggy Mess!
and Wiggum mixing up his message to Lou and Eddie. We also have Kelsey Grammer voicing Sideshow Bob for the 3rd time, and he's still fantastic, with his performance of the HMS Pinafore being a highlight. While I won't necessarily name it the best episode, it should be very, very high up on the final ranking. Phenomenal episode. While I can't say I'm a fan of Homer spiking the punch, it does at least lead to this brilliant joke.
Attention everyone, the punch has been spiked! Don't worry, your parents have been called and will be here to pick you up shortly!
I love how there are 2 separate implications to this. 1, they called all the parents within seconds. 2, they didn't mention the punch had been spiked until after they had called all the parents. And besides this, Homer Goes to College is a really good episode overall. There are many other great moments in this episode, with the best being Homer's inability to guard a bee, and getting bit on the bottom, Homer somehow believing he's a jock, his reaction to the professor dropping his notes, the children's hospital not being built because 6 cinder blocks were swiped, Homer causing the accident at college and calling Dean a stupid head, the Itchy and Scratchy cartoon, and Homer trying to cram in revision for the exam, plus his hilarious little victory dance. When one of the weakest episodes of the season is still a really good one, you know you've struck gold. While Mr. Burns is an evil arsehole, this episode shows a human side to him, in his regret over leaving behind Bobo as a kid, aka his Rosebud, this being one of several great homages to Citizen Kane. The episode also shows Homer's devotion to Maggie, in how he rejects a huge sum of fortune from Mr. Burns for the sake of her happiness and her love for Bobo. And it's home to many hilarious moments, including the simple yet hilarious reference to Barney the dinosaur, Homer mocking Mr. Burns at his birthday, Frank's failed bear robot, Homer wanting a recording studio, Burns taking over all TV channels, and providing his own content, and him and Smithers trying twice to steal back Bobo, but failing. Both a hilarious and emotionally gripping episode. Another strong treehouse of horror. The first segment is frequently funny, with the standout jokes being Homer's emergency donut, Burns seeing Ned as the devil, the ironic punishment, Homer and Marge marrying in an emergency room, and Homer's donut head. Overall, I do genuinely believe that Homer would canonically sell his soul for a donut. The Gremlin story is also frequently funny, particularly Otto hitting Hans Moleman's gremlin, Jimbo putting the torches in Martin's shorts, and Bart taking one, but putting the other back, and when Ned takes care of the gremlin at the end. Let's just say that doesn't end well, for Ned or Bart. The vampire story is probably the best segment, with the standout moments being Homer's casualty towards the clues of Mr. Burns being a vampire, and when he kills him at the end, only for Burns to briefly come back to life and fire him, as if that's gonna make any difference. Another home run for the Treehouse of Horrors, and the golden age of The Simpsons for that matter. This is a good episode. The funniest moment in the episode would be when Homer gets his arms stuck in the vending machine, which not only features him fantasizing about an upside to having them on his arms forever, but also features the revelation that he was only stuck because he was holding onto the cans. The other funniest moments are Wiggum thinking Ruth's car is a ghost car when the headlights go out, and Bart trying to trick Homer with the opposite note. While it's not as hilarious as most other Season 5 episodes, it's still a good episode. This is a frequently funny episode. The setup with the trampoline, the setup with the trampoline, the setup with the trampoline is home to many great moments, especially how Homer intends to expound on it. which definitely seems to be an idea that will never work in real life.
No, it doesn't.
Which leads into the hilarious main storyline about everyone believing they should act like Bart, and it all leading to chaos. All while Bart himself becomes frustrated with it. And Albert Brooks shines in his third guest appearance too. A frequently funny episode. The setup with the Super Squishy is hilarious, and Bart joining the junior campers, and what it leads to, managed to be great as well. Some of the best moments in the episode include Homer losing the $20 when slipping on the peanut he lost, Apu trying to make the all-syrup Super Squishy, Bart firing back at Nelson when reminding him of the test, and Homer and Bart failing to refuse each other's end of the situation. Bart not wanting Homer to go with him, and Homer not wanting to go with him. With all this said, I can't help but question how Homer ate 700 Krusty Burgers and lived to tell the tale. Honestly, what hasn't this man survived? While it is another episode in which an obstacle is placed between Homer and Marge's marriage, this one manages to bring something new, with Homer receiving a new female colleague with whom he shares a mutual attraction, but also has a ton in common with. It has a great build-up, and a predictable, yet heartwarming ending. It also has a lot of hilarious moments in both plotlines, particularly Bart painting the parking lines too close, the power plant's painted on fire exit, Homer and Mindy's first full conversation, the scene with Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo,
That's the worst name I ever heard.
Homer trying to
Inconsequito.
the man with the giant hand, the fortune cookie barrels, and the creepy bellboy getting punched. I have to put this one high on the season 5 ranking. My brain told me so. This is a good episode with a lot of funny moments, particularly Burns losing sleep, and Barney accidentally drinking quarters and burping them. With that said, the plotline about the family struggling without Marge has been done twice before. A somewhat derivative, but ultimately good episode overall. This is a frequently funny episode. While it has many hilarious moments throughout, the third act is my favourite part, particularly when they try to dig for the treasure, only to get trapped, and then come up with absurd ways to get out the hole. Great episode. This is a great episode throughout. The setup with the box factory, and how hilariously tedious and empty the experience is just brilliant. This manages to lead into the main plot about Bart becoming Krusty's assistant, only to accidentally destroy a set and say,
I didn't do it.
leading to him temporarily becoming a celebrity, which manages to be a funny commentary on how unimaginative media becomes popular, either temporarily or for very long periods of time. It also manages to have many hilarious moments outside of the setup or satirical commentary. A notable one being when Kent refuses to read the news due to Bart stealing his Danish cookie, only for Bumblebee Man to quickly replace him and read the news in such a hilarious way.
A powerful tidal wave in Kuala Lumpur has killed 120 people.
Hey, Chihuahua! Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Anyhow, this is a great episode, and if any of you disagree with the opinion I voiced, I didn't do it. The first episode to give Apu a major role, and also gives him a compelling character arc. It features a lot of great jokes, but many are packed into the entire plot point of Homer wearing the camera within the huge hat. Homer being so cool in describing his refusal to wear a wire, the fact that he's willing to wear a hidden camera and microphone, the van saying ordinary van, Kent having Homer wear an oversized novelty hat, the fact that a tiny camera somehow requires an oversized hat, Kent explaining he needs to be in and out in 10 minutes or he'll suffer permanent neck damage, the aftermath of someone not complying with this instruction, Homer struggling to walk into the Quickie Mart, Homer believing a bee is in the hat, stepping on it and running out.
Homer, that hat's been with the station for 20 years. He had 1 day left till retirement.
Which creates two jokes. One being the way Kent talks about it like a human, and the fact that they came up with the camera just now, yet it had somehow been around for 20 years. Apu stating his intention to sell a dirty wiener out loud, him saying it to the smashed hat, and, the highlight of it all, Homer going back into the Quickie Mart in seconds, even after he saw the footage, and eating the hot dog in 2 seconds. That's 16 jokes in less than 2 minutes, equivalent to more than 8 jokes in a minute. Just an example of the magic behind the comedy in classic Simpsons. The only way it could have been funnier is if they showed the ambulance van again. Rule of 3, right? The episode also features a guest appearance from James Woods, and whether you like him as a person or not, he has proven himself to be a great voice actor, not just through voicing Hades in Hercules, but also through his appearance in this episode of The Simpsons. He manages to have his fair share of funny line deliveries, but his guest appearance also works in the context of the story, establishing that he becomes the manager of the Quickie Mart to research a role in a film. This also makes James Woods one of the few voice actors to voice himself on both The Simpsons and Family Guy. Who Needs the Quickie Mart is also a great song, even if Apu lied to us through song. I hate when people do that. But ultimately, who needs this episode? We do! Okay, that's the wrong episode, but it works, so I'll allow it. Another episode with a lot of great jokes, many of which stem from Grandpa's side plot about trying to relive his youth and working at Krusty Burger. I also have to give mention to Smithers helping Lisa reach Malibu Stacy and the automated message from Mr. Burns on his computer.
We probably should ignore that.
The episode also serves as an insightful commentary on how companies can easily influence people to buy their products, even with minimal effort. Remains very relevant today with the lack of new ideas in both toy companies and film companies. The idea of Homer Simpson of all people going into space sounds ridiculous, but also like it should take advantage of its space theme. And it does, while also having a reason that makes sense. It also brings constant hilarious moments, and references to films such as 2001: A Space Odyssey and Planet of the Apes. And a number of great lines, such as,
For the duration of the training, there'll be no more beer.
What? 3 whole weeks with only wine?
They even managed to get Buzz Aldrin to guest star, joining Homer on the shuttle. The episode even features a hilarious climax, primarily Kent Brockman believing the ants are aliens invading Earth, and Homer using an inanimate carbon rod to shut the doors to the shuttle, with the public only acknowledging the rod.
It's an inanimate fucking object.
You're an inanimate fucking object!
Even before the space stuff, we get hilarious jokes as well. Primarily Bart writing on the back of Homer's skull, and Homer thinking TV respects him. My, does that backfire.
You stupid!
Don't! Another brilliant, memorable episode with some of the show's best jokes. This episode has a lot of good moments. The standouts being Homer chasing the Flanders family a la Terminator 2, the Nacho hat, and Will, the rapping Ronnie Reagan tape. Where I don't like it quite as much is how the third act feels too mean-spirited towards Ned, and how everyone gets outraged at him because he, for once, loses his temper. But it is still a good episode overall. Bart choosing an elephant over $10,000 is a bit far-fetched, but otherwise the episode is great. As well as being home to many hilarious moments, particularly Homer trying to clean the basement, the Sound of Music reference, I can only imagine they were waiting for the perfect moment to make that reference, and Barney's nonchalant reaction to catching fire. It also manages to convey an intriguing anti-animal abuse message. If I had a nickel for every time a Season 5 Simpsons episode humanized Mr. Burns, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? On that note, Burns' Error is another banger of an episode, and it does a good job of continuing to humanize Mr. Burns. This time, it focuses on his desire to find someone to leave his fortune to. Of course though, this is Mr. Burns, and his manipulative evil side is also on display in how he tricks Bart into believing his family don't want him back, and trying to force him to fire Homer. It also manages to be frequently funny, with moments such as Burns' life flashing before his eyes, the auditions to be Burns' heir, Burns trying to play cricket with Bart, the mix-up with Hans Moorman, and the bad performance by the actors hired by Burns to play Homer, Marge and Lisa. When you can't get Michael Caine to guest star in one episode, have Dan Castellaneta voice him in another one. It also gives Bart an interesting arc of learning to value family and friends over wealth. Another great episode. Well, we're 100 episodes in, and this one, while not as funny as other episodes, does still have a lot of funny moments, including when Groundskeeper Willie chases Santa's little helper through the vent, Ned Flanders becoming principal, and Apu shunning Skinner's Jurassic Park ripoff. It also brings depth to the relationship between Bart and Skinner, when the former feels bad about getting the latter fired, and tries to help get him rehired, while starting a poignant friendship between the two, even if things had to unfortunately reset with Skinner being rehired. While it is a bit of a shame that Bart and Skinner go back to disliking each other so soon, this episode manages to have a simultaneously comedic and threatening chase montage of Skinner pursuing Bart when the latter plays truant. Skinner is definitely a non-giving-up school guy. The episode has various other memorable moments, like Lisa laughing at Skinner and Willie, the waiter's hilarious clumsiness, and of course, Homer's various actions and thoughts on jury duty, including the disguise glasses, and the iconic
Yum 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 yum.
The episode also provides intriguing satire of nepotism and bribery, in how Mayor Quimby tries to bribe people to say his nephew was nowhere near the Quimby compound, only for it to backfire due to Freddy's entitlement and anger management problem. A great episode overall. Some of my favourite moments in this episode include Homer ruining McGaggy's birthday cake, Grandpa confusing love with a stroke, and the ending reference to The Graduate. While it's not as funny as the other episodes this season, it's still a good episode overall. This episode manages to have a lot of great moments, some standouts being Homer playing poker, Moe's flunk dancing class, the discussion of the orange eating class, and the scene where Homer tries to win Marge back by echoing memories. Don't have much more to say other than it being a great episode, except for Homer teasing the order box at Krusty Burger, the naughty naughty. The Simpsons is still continuing to improve. Looking at the season as a whole, best one yet. Roll on the season 6 ranking.